This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. Thousands of board games, discounted prices, miniaturemarket.com.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're flying over the ballpark, listening to the ball hit the bat and watching it go over for a home run. We're going to be talking about drafting some baseball players today in our fantasy league, but they're fantasy players, like orcs. We're talking about Fantasy Baseball. This is a game from CSC Games. It is for 1 to 5 players. So let's take a look. I'm going to show you how it's played and we'll see you on the other side. The game is played over 3 rounds, known as 3 months, then a World Series. During these 3 normal rounds, we're going to go through 4 different phases. The first is prepare. So what we'll do is we'll take the top cards off of the mound and we will place them face up at each of the 4 bases. So now you see we have the 4 cards that are going to be the 4 weeks in this round. Each card will tell us how many wins this card is worth. Wins are essentially points in this game. In this one, home runs plus RBIs, whoever has the most of those is going to win this card. Now, home runs is this symbol and RBIs is this symbol. Now, when you have your character cards, there's 2 types of character cards. One of them are hitters. The hitters have icons that are blackened, which means that this is an offensive hitting player. Now, if I look at these icons here, this here is this and this is this. So in this case, I would add up both of these and this would be 18. I have an 18 value to try to win this card. Now conversely, this player here appears to possibly have these 2 colors, but don't get these confused. This player is a pitcher, and you can tell that because these are white symbols, not black symbols. So these will not be worth anything because this is a hitter's game and this is a pitcher. And going back to another smaller hitter, this player only has 1 of the needed icons, so this player is worth 3. And so you're trying to get the most to be able to win this. Once those 4 win cards have been placed face up, all the other players are going to select which 4 of the 6 cards they're going to play that round. And as you can see, it looks like a diamond. In the middle is the tile, and we have first, second, third, and home put face down, and then you put your wizard on top when you're done selecting. Once everyone's selected their roster, we will go through each of the 4 games for this month in that consecutive fashion. When we get to first, everyone will flip over their card on the first base of their diamond, and then we would resolve it. So each player would flip over that card, tally up the home runs and RBIs, making sure it's offensive, the black icons in this case, and they would tally it up and say what the number is. And at this point, we would go in turn order to see if anybody wants to use magic. The brown player would get to go first, then black, then blue, and then purple. Well, what is this magic that you could possibly use? Now, if you remember, you played 4 cards around your diamond. 2 of them are still in your hand that you did not select. Those are considered on your bench, and those are the ones you can possibly use magic for. So let's say these were the 2, they'd be in my hand, and when it became my turn to possibly use magic, I could flip them face up on the table and use their magic ability. For example, summon. I could add this orc stats to this week's game. And this is very advantageous because this week we are looking for that. So I could add that to my character's stats for the week. Or maybe I could swap a character with another one of my characters. Maybe I could swap any of the ones on the base, maybe even already has been resolved, with another one. So these do all sorts of different abilities. If you do use this, you place it face up just like this on the table, and you cannot use it again for the rest of this month, which essentially are these first 4 weeks that have been dealt. Now, once everyone has had the ability to possibly play magic in this turn order once, then this will finally resolve, and then at that point, whoever has the highest, in this case of these 2, would collect this card for the 2 wins. Now, anybody that did not win this gets to go up the stat track. On every card, you'll see a different amount of colors here. This is stat track. Anybody that has played a yellow or an orange this turn can go up on the stat track. Now, if this was the player that won, even though this player has an orange and a yellow, they wouldn't go because they were actually the one to collect this card. But anybody else that had it would be able to go. Like, let's say this player had played and they did not win, but they have orange. They could go up the orange stat track once. If they had orange and yellow, they'd be able to go up both of those tracks once. So let's say the blue player played this in the first week. They have a yellow, they have an orange. Note that even this yellow and orange was a pitcher. It wasn't even able to possibly win, but it does not matter because here you're just looking for colors. So we have yellow and orange. This blue player would go up once on the yellow and once on the orange. So if it's the first one, they would place it in the yellow and in the orange. If they were already here, they would move it up one more in the stat track, and this is keeping track of how high you are in each of the stats. Every player that did not win this card this round gets to go up in the stat tracks once for each of the colors that were on the player that they played that week. And once we've resolved all 4, this month's games are over. And now that we're done with the first round, we're actually in the second round, we would then go to free agency. Now what we would do is take the character deck and deal out the amount of players plus 2. So in here we have 4 players, so there's a total of 6 cards that are face up. This is the free agency pool. Now starting in this waiver order, going to the left, so blue will have the first chance to gather a waiver. And how they do this is they select a card that they want, they put it in their hand, and they replace it with one of the cards that's already in their hand, which means they still have 6 cards in their hand. Each player would have an opportunity in this order to be able to do that. If there's ever a tie during the normal rounds, basically good players will always beat evil players. If it's still tied, nobody will win it this round, which would make everybody available for the stat track. After all 3 rounds have been played, meaning you've played the first, second, third, and home of 3 rounds in a row, the regular season's over. We'll then look at the stat track board. And here we'll look at who's in first, second, third, and all these different places. In this case, we're playing with 4 players. In this case, brown is the best in this one, then black, then blue. In this case, it's black, and then blue and brown are tied for second place, and so on and so forth. You would go through each one of these stat tracks one at a time, and you'd give a certain amount of wins out depending on who is in what place. When you give out wins right now, they'll just grab the top of the win cards like the mound and give them just like this. You do not use the win total here. This is just considered 1 win. And the amount of wins you get depends on this table that you can refer to by pausing this video. In this case, as you see in a 4-player game, first place will get 3, second place gets 2, third place gets 1. If people are tied for a certain position, the tied people there all get it. So if there were 2 people tied for first, they'd both get 3, but no one would get second place, and whoever was next would get third place. So friendly ties here. Then each player would total their wins by the values of the cards they won and the single cards they just got from the stat track board. In this case, this player has 12 wins. After everyone said how many wins they have, the top 2 teams will go to a final Game 7 of the World Series. If there's a tie, there'll be 1 wild card round between the tied teams. The World Series is played a little differently. All you need to do is be the first one to win any 4 win cards regardless of the amount of wins on that card. So each win card you win is worth 1 of them, first to 4 wins. Now the team that had the most wins at the end of the regular season is the home team. The one who didn't or was in second place or the one that just won wild card will be the visitor team. Regardless, both players will now program all 4 bases for the World Series. However, the visitor must flip their card first so that the home player gets to see it. This is only done in the first card of the World Series. It's the home field advantage. The home player now can look at this card, they can look at the cards that they've programmed, and then they can decide if they want to rearrange any or all of the cards that they've already programmed. Again, this is only for the first card of the World Series. And then it's resolved as normal. The winner would take this card and just flip it up because it's considered as 1 win. You would continue doing this until the end of the 4th game. If the same player had won all 4, they win the World Series. If not, we're going to continue the World Series. So let's say here, 4 cards have been played for the World Series, and let's say it's not over yet. We're going to go to a 5th game. What happens is each player takes the card that they played for the first game back into their hand, but the rest stay out because this is Game 5. Now what happens in Game 5 is a new win card will come out just like normal on the board, and they would try to win it. But remember, since they have 3 cards here, they're going to have less cards in their hand to choose from to try to program here. Now, Magic can be played in the World Series. For example, if in Game 1, this player played this card, and this player played Magic, they would put it next to this. So therefore, when they come back down to the 5th game, if there is one, they would get both of these cards back on their hand. That way, if they've used both Magic through the first 4 games of the World Series, they're not going to have a lot of choices when they get back. Also, when there is a wild card game, the player who won that game, once you get to game 5, can get that player back into their hand to begin game 5. And whoever wins 4 games first is the winner. Therefore, the most games you can play is 7. All right, there is my overview for Fantasy Baseball. Now, back in 2016, at the beginning of the year, this made my top 10 most anticipated games because I love baseball. I love fantasy baseball. I don't really care about fantasy in a world, but I like the aspect of mixing those two worlds together and giving this such a unique thing where you're going for stats now, games now, or stats later, and I like that idea about this. The game itself, I gotta say, the artwork in this game is awesome. There's just really cool characters. You got those ugly orcs, and you got some, all different characters that are just really cool and unique. They have those special abilities. Overall, I think the thing is great. The green monster, my gosh, I grew up basically at Fenway Park in Boston, and to see that green monster be the stat track, what a great touch there. That's just awesome. That just makes me love this game even more. The mound looks cool. The card you put them on there, it looks like the mound. Everything, there was a lot of attention to detail in this game from a production standpoint, and I really like that. Now, the game itself is pretty simple. I mean, you're basically drafting a hand of cards at the beginning of the game, and you're playing which ones, and you're seeing who wins. Sounds super simple. It is super simple mechanically, but man, there's a lot of choices to make, and it's kind of a brain burner a little bit. You're sitting there with 6 cards, and you're like, oh, okay, I gotta play 4 of these. Now, which one should I do? Which gives me the best chance? So I gotta do this, this, and this, and this. But if I do this, I can't use this cool guy's magic ability. Oh, do I think I'm gonna win the game? If I do, I wanna play him. But if not, maybe I'll just put him somewhere I can get up on the stat track for the long-term points, or I can save him for that cool magic ability. And it's interesting because it's like, what do you really want to go for? You really have to go for stuff, but people are messing you over with magic. I mean, this game can get really mean really fast where you think you're going to get something, someone plays magic and goes, one of your things is canceled, I'm going to win that one. And you're like, oh, now it screwed up the rest of your week. You're like, if I just given that one to you, then I could have done something else, it would have changed my whole game. So even though it's pretty much a simple game, I like the amount of depth that you have for the decision making of points now versus points later versus how I'm going to get those points with this magic ability. Really cool. And then after the round, you've got the way to get more players, and I think that's cool how you're trading them out. And I like how it's balanced. The player with the least wins gets the first waiver. So the player has the most wins is probably getting all the rookies to choose from, which they're probably not going to take unless there's a really cool one with an ability they need or something like that. You're trying to spread out your stats so that you're as good at everything as possible. So again, it's a simple game. It takes about 30 to 45 minutes to play, maybe a little bit longer with 4 or 5 players. But it's pretty simple, and I like it. I like the fact that you're trying to go up those different tracks, trying to score there, and then it knocks 2 people out. I didn't mind having it, even in the 4-player game, when the 2 of us got knocked out and didn't make the finals in the last game. We didn't mind. It was only like 5 minutes for the World Series. It's pretty quick because you're just selecting cards pretty quickly. We liked watching the end of it to see who would win, so we didn't mind that. There's lots of variants here with different ways to play, as you saw. So overall, I really liked it. I didn't enjoy the solo game that much, and it didn't really shine with 2 players because you're going through the 3 rounds. Sure, you're building your deck. You're getting basically 2 new characters over the game, but you're both making it to the World Series anyway, so it's really for that home field advantage, which does mean a lot. I mean, you can really win the first game with that. But it didn't seem to be as good. It didn't shine until you got to 3 players. 3 through 5 is great. With 5, I would recommend the double wins because then it's just everyone's just going for stat track because you don't think you're going to win. 4 players was great. So overall, I think this is good, and I liked it's just different and unique. And for that, I'm going to be keeping it in my game library because I love baseball, and this is just a cool, different way to play it. And even though it doesn't feel like baseball. Now, I know in Baseball Highlights 2045, I said you don't really need to know baseball to play it because you don't. But you have to have some sort of basic inclining of what a walk is, a hit, a triple. This, you don't need to know anything about baseball. It's literally just matching up colors and icons. That's it. So this is that. Baseball, fantasy baseball is one I highly recommend. And so let's do this thing some justice and induct it properly with a saxophone serenade.
This video was sponsored by Miniature Market's Review Corner. The Review Corner features podcasts, video, and written game reviews by gamers for gamers. Miniature Market, the online gaming superstore. Thousands of board games, discounted prices. Check them out at miniaturemarket.com. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for backing me on Kickstarter, making this season become a reality. I'd like to especially thank those here that have backed me at the credit level. Now, these video reviews are also available by audio on our podcast. It's the intros and the final thoughts on GameBoyGeek.com. Click podcast.